But cool. So I guess to get started off, I just want us to go ahead and introduce ourselves a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about me. You can tell me a little bit about yourself and your expertise and just kind of how you got into all this. So obviously, my name is Brody. I'm the content creator with Entre. Been working here since June, so pretty new into the game, but super excited to be here. Super grateful for the opportunity and basically just focus on our content from YouTube to Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of good stuff, and just trying to spread the message about what Entre is and just about Web3 and this space as well. And I do a lot of videography and editing, and that's kind of where I got my start. So been in Web3 and crypto for about a year now or so, but just excited to keep learning about it, get to talk to some awesome people like you, who have a lot more knowledge than I do about the stuff here.
Yeah, cool. No, that's good to know. So my name is Jardin. I am from South Africa. A lot of people get overwhelmed at that part, but I'm a full stack software developer, and I've been that for about 20 odd years now. I've been in that industry. I've done probably around 320 odd development projects across multiple industries, and I've basically worked on multiple software development platforms. I've done mobile app development. I've done web, enterprise, marketing, you name it. I've sort of been there, done that. I've worked with many consulting firms, so I've gained a lot of experience over those many years. And I jumped into the Web3 ecosystem. I would say properly jumped into the Web3 ecosystem probably around September last year, 2021.
Okay.
And my focus was to see, to create decentralized applications and to start using blockchain technologies. And I've developed a couple of applications already on my side, but I've also been a content creator for the past 2 years. And because I have a lot of knowledge, and my primary focus has been teaching Node.js developers, because that's the technology I use primarily, is Node, React, Mongo, and what we call the MERN stack, MERN. So I have a channel on YouTube called Bleeding Code, and the focus over there is production practices, optimizations, performance, and all that kind of good stuff. And then, but as of end of last year, I focused a lot on Web3, and as I learned it, I realized as well that there's such an opportunity for general user adoption on the Web3 ecosystem, but unfortunately, it feels like most of Web3 has been designed and engineered by techies, and therefore not friendly at all. and what I've been doing lately is I've been focusing on trying to create that bridge between general users and the Web3 ecosystem so that they can adopt the technology as well, because there's just a mountain of opportunity waiting for them, and it would be very unfair that it only exists for the more technical folks. So, and that's why you see a lot, whenever you see my name, you see sort of Web3 simplified, which is the brand that I'm slowly but surely creating, which is focused on educational content for general users. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so perfect for this conversation too. It's exactly what I was hoping to achieve with this. Because I definitely agree. I think Web3, the technology and utility behind it is going to be game changing. But you're so right. It's been developed by people who don't have the user in mind sometimes, and that creates that barrier between the general users. And I think it's sort of like almost causing a little bit of fear for these Web2 users, where they're like, I don't know if I want to make the jump because I don't understand it. And people are afraid of the unknown. That's kind of the problem we have,
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate that introduction for sure. Well, cool. So I guess we'll kind of get things started off with a few questions here. So kind of going off what you were talking about, Web3 simplified. One thing that I wanted to grab from you, just one great, little piece of content here was, could you give a one sentence description of Web3? If you had to give a Web3 for dummies, one sentence description, how would you describe what Web3 is and I guess why people should care about it?
I
know it can be loaded.
Yeah, to fit it in one sentence.
If you got to go into 2 or 3, that's perfectly fine. I guess just a simplified way of doing it.
I take a look at my family. Whenever I do that, I'll look at my mom and I'll look at my dad and I'll say, okay, how do I explain why this is important to you? But I think if there's one thing that I could give to people in a sentence of what Web3 is, it is a shift in a mindset of what the internet is, and knowing that there is actually nothing is for free. Absolutely nothing is for free on the internet. There is a cost involved, and even though you feel that you are using free platforms and free applications right now, it is absolutely not true. There is in fact a cost. That cost is your time, that cost is your data and your information and being tracked. That is the cost that you pay to use Twitter or Facebook or these platforms for free. And Web3 is a shift from that to say that there is no longer has to be the cost. The cost can be elsewhere, but it will not be your privacy, it will not be your data, and not necessarily your attention. A couple of sentences, wow. But yeah.
No, I mean that was perfect, and I mean you're so right with that. I heard a quote that really resonated with me, where somebody was saying, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. And I think that's what we run into right now. Exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely.
We're going on these free sites. That's because you're not being sold anything. They're selling you. They're selling you to people who want to utilize your data and use it there. So I guess with Web3, so I mean that big shift is having these users be able to keep their data to themselves. Is that correct? Like, they're not, the data is not being sold anymore. Is that kind of where the decentralization comes in?
Yes, to an extent, I would say, because there's big arguments right now about what that really means, what Web3 is currently at the moment. And that's why there's currently Web3 and there's what I call true Web3, which Jack Dorsey calls Web5. But he just did that for marketing. All right. It made good marketing, and he confused the heck out of everyone. So he called that Web5. But what he calls Web5, I call true Web3. And true Web3 is complete ownership of what you do. They keep saying your keys, your data, not your keys, not your data, and for many other things as well. The current Web3 ecosystem pretends to be decentralized and uses decentralized technology in many facets, but people do not have the knowledge in order to do what they need to do on this Web3 ecosystem. They don't have the knowledge, and they can easily be fooled or scammed or taken advantage of, which is a huge problem. It's still a problem in Web 2, never mind Web 3. But so what happens is these platforms create a medium that allow these users with very little knowledge in order to embrace some of this technology, but it comes at a cost once again, and that cost is once again that they don't own their wallets. If you go onto Binance, if you go onto Coinbase, you don't own those wallets. They own the wallets. It's on their platform. The fact that you've got crypto sitting over there and that it's assigned to your user account is much of a muchness. Look at what Coinbase did. They froze how many accounts from being able to transfer coins and currencies to and from. That's exactly, and everyone is still sort of, but they decentralized. No, it's not true decentralization. True decentralization, they would have never had the opportunity to do such a thing.
Mm-hmm. So with that true decentralization, that's basically taking away that regulatory body, right? That's putting all the power into the users.
Correct. Which obviously creates a number of additional issues. But I mean, that's a separate argument. Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm kind of curious. What are those issues that you're referring to?
Well, I mean, do we have the right to own our own data? Are we ready to be accountable for that kind of responsibility? Because if you've got, you're walking around with a briefcase. You've got the briefcase contains your entire your lives, your let's say your green slip, your slips to your car, your houses, everything sitting inside this briefcase, and you're walking around in a social ecosystem with this briefcase, and you have the keys. You are allowed to open up this briefcase and show someone that you own a property, or show someone that you engaged in a conversation with whoever. But are you ready to be accountable for that? To be in this ecosystem knowing that there are people out there that are just looking to grab that briefcase in some way or form and somehow get access to your keys, or somehow convince you to open the case and give them what they need. So that's why I say true decentralization is you with a briefcase, whereas the current Web 2 and the current, in some aspects, Web 3 is that briefcase is sitting inside a bank or a safety facility box, or you know what I'm saying, and it's being controlled by others, but they ultimately have the keys to that, right? And I think that's the mindset that a person needs to have. Now, my problem is I'm a big fan of true decentralization, but in my mind, there is huge risk if I now want my family who are not as technically able as what I am right now, that I want them now to take advantage of this whole Web3 ecosystem, but now they don't know what to do. They have no clue on how to protect themselves. They have no idea what's happening in this Web3 world, and they will come in thinking that they're just buying a little bit of crypto, and before you know it, they're scammed, or they've exposed something, or that's that. And I think that's the biggest issue right now.
Right. I mean, I love that analogy you said about the briefcase and the keys, walking around with that, because I mean that's basically what it is. I mean, when you're jumping into Web5, I know like when I kind of want to get into some of this a little bit later, but when TBD announced those 3 pillars of Web5, and I'm assuming you're referring to, I guess, kind of the decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials pillars in there, where it was basically saying, okay, you have your identification here that's linked with your credentials. That's yours. It's locked in by, I'm assuming, probably a seed phrase or something along those lines, but you've got the one shot at it. That's yours. I mean, you own it all, but the protection is not there and I guess whether you're gaining from that is not having that data being sold and passed out to other people. But it's kind of wild. It's like going off on your own in the real world, and you're losing the protection. You're gaining your freedom, but you're losing your protection.
Yeah.
It seems like that's kind of where it's headed.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess now that we're, a little bit on that topic, would you mind maybe talking through those 3 pillars that TBD announced when they released Web5, I guess being the decentralized identifiers, verifiable credentials, and decentralized web nodes, I guess in the same kind of simplified form that you've been doing?
Yeah. So the 3 pillars is the decentralized identifiers. The verified credentials sort of sits in between. You've got your DWNs, your decentralized web nodes, okay, which is your data store. It's your briefcase. So the decentralized identifier is your key, is your primary key to the briefcase. Your verifiable credentials are the other keys on your key ring that sort of allow you to work with other entities and stuff. So you have keys to that office and you have keys to that. That's kind of what verifiable credentials is kind of giving you. And then your nodes is your data store, your briefcase, and then you've got your DWAs, your decentralized web apps. Now these are just Web2 applications actually. They, like you would design websites the way you would normally design them. The only difference is that usually when you design like a Facebook or Twitter or whatever website that runs in the browser, it interacts with the data store, right? So it could be interacting with a SQL Server, or it could be interacting with Mongo or a number of other data stores out there using APIs. But the problem is what makes it a decentralized web app is that it no longer interacts with some sort of centralized data store like a SQL Server, but instead interacts with the person's briefcase. It interacts with their decentralized web node. So now, to move away from the briefcase, the web node is basically your own little SQL database or your own data store that you own, that you host, and you could have multiple instances of. So and yes, it can use blockchain technology, but not necessarily. Okay, the blockchain technology is there to create a synchronization across multiple devices, whether it be your smartphone, whether it be a computer, whether it be cloud-hosted virtual machines. And the blockchain is there to create this ledger that will store these transactions, and it will obviously using cryptography and synchronize these transactions across multiple nodes. And that's what makes it decentralized. So what happens is currently, if you go to Ethereum or if you go to Bitcoin, that's exactly what's happening, right? This ledger is just spread across hundreds of thousands of machines across the world. But what Jack Dorsey was sort of going to with the decentralized web nodes is that you're going to create your very own little Bitcoin blockchain, your very own. and it only belongs to you. And the only way that a person can gain access to that blockchain is using your DID, your decentralized identifier. So a DID is just, it's like when you create like, have you ever needed to log in with Facebook or Google on a certain platform, right? Your Google is acting as an ID, okay, but it's not decentralized, so it hasn't earned that D, that prefix of a D. So it's just a normal ID versus this over here, where the ID is sort of created and only works on your little blockchain, your little nodes of blockchain where your data is stored. So your DID, decentralized identifier, is the only thing that can actually access that and open that up. And then through that, you might want to interact with Brody's decentralized web nodes, because Brody is a content creator and created some sort of means and would like myself, John Jardin, to share my social or my content on Web5. All right. Now I have the right to grant you that access. Using my DID, I can go to my little blockchain. I can go to my content related to Web5, and I can grant you as Brody your DID. I can grant it access to that, and you will be able to see that data and pull it and read that data on your side. Okay, and right. The DWAs, just to close it off, the DWAs are just applications that are able to not talk to a centralized data store, but your own personal data store. So every time you log in or whatever, it will say, I'd like to see your feed so that I can share it on our social feed, but you need to grant me access. I don't have a data store. I need to connect to your data store. Otherwise there would be no data on my application.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, amazing explanation on that. That definitely helps. That helps me get a better understanding of it for sure. One thing that kind of came up when you were talking a little bit, you were talking about how you would have the ability to grant access to me. You were saying to my DID, you would grant access for. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit mixed up on the terminology there, but I think you know what I'm referring to. You're saying you grant the access. With that, going kind of back to being able to be used by the general user, I mean, is that something where you're diving deep into code? Is that something that only the top people in tech are going to understand how to do? Or do you see a future in which the general user will be able to easily do those functions? I guess I'm just kind of curious of if someone's going to have to build some kind of very user-friendly platform for these things to be able to happen. But then I guess on the other hand, doesn't that kind of take away from it being all decentralized and being all just each person kind of on their own path?
Well, I think, if you take a look at what TBD is trying to do here, is they're going to create these tools that are going to allow this integration. Because if you take, if you ever see join our application, sign in with Google, right? And you click on Google, you click on the Google icon and it takes you to another page, and that page says, listen, this person, this Reddit wants to authenticate you, your Google account. Do you grant access? And then what it does in the middle, it says, what are you actually granting? So this is what they're asking for. So that's we call that OAuth authentication that happens. It's a standard, and it gets used across multiple platforms, and it's a means for them to authenticate using other people's credentials. So and I've seen it already because unfortunately for Jack Dorsey and his team, Web5 already exists. It's already been created by other people, so they're not the first. There's already platforms out there. Elastos is a great version of Web5. I keep doing this because it's not Web5, it's true Web3.
Right.
It's not Web5. All right, it's true Web3. So,
but it's got the marketing sound.
Yeah.
It sounds nice in Web5.
I did it yesterday. I said I now refer to it as Jack's Web5. Jack Dorsey's Web5. That's what I call it. Jack Dorsey's Web5.
Because it's his thing.
It's his thing. Yeah.
Not what's really going to happen.
But the true Web3 is what he's trying to achieve over here, and it already exists. Solid, the creator, the inventor of the web, Sir, what's it? Tim Berners-Lee. I can't remember his name exactly. He came out with Solid, which uses pods, which is your decentralized web nodes. It doesn't even use blockchain technology, but everything is there. So they've also got decentralized identifiers and they've got these pods. So he's busy doing that. Elastos are using blockchain technology and they create what they call hives. Hives is decentralized web nodes. They've also got identifiers and then they've created JavaScript, Swift, Java toolkits for developers to create applications on this sort of Elastos network. And Elastos means the last OS, the last operating system. So they regard it as the true decentralized operating system.
Wow. So there are people out there right now that are creating user-friendly applications that people can use to do these functions.
Absolutely. It's not wow factor in terms of user experience. It's not wow factor at all. But it does exist. And for the more technically inclined, they will be able to sort of work with it and do a couple of things with it. But jumping back to the whole authentication, the reason why I mentioned Elastos as an example is they gave a proper. They've got a mobile app. You can actually download Elastos, the mobile app, and from there, from the mobile app, which is free, you can create your own DID from there. And then what happens is it's got a catalog of applications that you can go and access. And the moment you try and access one of the applications, that app says, listen, I need your data store. So Elastos in the mobile app, they also create your own hive, your own local data store, which is about 500 megs for free. And that's stored on your local device. So anyways, so you've got all of that. And then you go into the mobile app and then you say, I'd like to join this decentralized web application, which is what Elastos has. And you go inside there and it says, okay, in order to use this, I need to know your name. So the moment I say grant access, it actually shows up that it wants to know my name and I have to tick it. And if it wants to know my location, I have to tick it. But I don't have to tick it. It shows me that it just needs my name. It doesn't necessarily need my location, but it would like it. I can choose, I only want to give you my name, authorize. And then I'm in the decentralized web app and I'm off to go. So the tools will be there. TBD will build the same tools that will automatically tell the general user what exactly is Brody asking for. And the user will be able to say, okay, I will grant, or I will revoke, and there you go, authorize.
So it's kind of like in I know when Web3 was first coming out, one of the big things they talked about was openness. That was one of the biggest things. They're like, we want to be open with our users. So I guess that's kind of what Jack's looking for too. It is, as Web5 is true Web3. He wants things to be open for the users so that when they get asked those questions, it says, okay, this is what we need from you. And you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Because I know in Web 2, all they want is your data because, like we said before, you are the product. So they don't want you to know everything that they're getting from you. I mean, they throw it in there, but it's fine print. It's oddly worded. So that way people just say, okay, yeah, grant access to everything.
Yeah.
And then they have your data. Because there's so many different applications where you do Facebook authentication. And when you go in and do it, I've clicked on one before where I didn't even really notice at first. I started reading through and it's like, okay, we need your name, your email address, your location, your phone number, your contact information, your best friends list, all this stuff. And it was just some random app game. I'm like, why exactly do they need to know all that?
Yeah.
It's because that's how they're making their money. Wow. Okay. That's
exactly.
Awesome. Well, cool. All right. Let me see. I'm going to scroll through a little bit more questions I got as well. Because you're hitting so many of my questions already with your answers, which I really appreciate.
No, it's good. So, I got a couple of great topics to also discuss around Web3 when we're ready.
Sure. Yeah. I'll go ahead and pass it off to you for a little bit and just whatever you're interested in talking about, and then I can kind of wrap back around if we don't hit some of the stuff that I had written down. That'd be perfect.
Well, I think the first one is this is a problem that I've already seen as I'm trying to work through the Web5 stuff, but how are we going to manage the data models? So, all right, they are saying that this social media platform, which might be a Twitter lookalike, and so they want to do more or less the same thing as what Twitter wants to do, but now they want to access your decentralized web node. Okay, the way things are going, TBD is not going to be the only decentralized web node sort of solution available. Elastos is already out there. Solid is already out there. So let's just use those three. Let's just say right now, at some point in the next 6 months, it's going to be these three: TBD, Elastos, and Solid. Now, you can take the user base that will be willing to take on this technology and divide them into three. 30% go to the one, and 30% go to the other, and so on and so forth. If I want to create a Twitter lookalike, I don't want to only focus on the one. I want to focus on all of them, right? I want to make sure that all of them can come to the party. I don't want to be able to only say, well, this is TBD's Twitter, or this is a Twitter that's only compliant with TBD's decentralized web node or data stores. So now my question is, if I want to tweet, how is the person, let's go to you now. You are Brody, and you decided to use Elastos's Hive as a decentralized web node. So now you go inside there, and then you access my Twitter platform because I grant you access because I'm compliant or I'm capable with Elastos. You go and post the tweet. What happens is the tweet gets stored in your local data store, right? Mm. What specification does it get stored as? How does it get stored exactly? Is it something that will only ever work on that social media platform? Because now let's go to TBD's version of Twitter. It might be someone else and they wanted to do Twitter, but let's say they were funded by TBD, but now they want to be compliant with Elastos. So now you go finally log in onto their platform. How do they grab your social media content that was created from another platform? Do you understand? What does the data model for this content look like whenever it's a song, whenever it's a video, whenever it's a post, whenever it's a blog article, or whenever it's something much bigger, like a PDF or like an ebook or whatever? How does one define these data models? And I think I'm not getting my head around that one.
Yeah, well, because I mean, one of the big things with the true Web3 was the DIDs. So because from my understanding, we're basically creating ourselves and like a one-stop shop kind of identity that we're supposed to be able to use across the web. So then that does pose a really good question of, if it's supposed to be one identity, but we have competing, platforms trying to get us on there. I mean, are they going to be willing to share with each other? Is it something that's going to be out of their control? I mean, that one definitely sparks some questions.
Well, you actually raised another good point now, because I was focusing on the data stores. You just mentioned the DIDs now. It was the intention was to say I'm walking around with one set of keys, but now I need multiple sets of keys because I need a DID if I want to use this data store. What if I want to work on this platform, but they only work with solid pods, you know? So now I'm like, okay, I got Elastos now, but they're like, sorry, if you want to use our platform, you need to go and create a free solid pod and store your data there. How's that going to work now? Now I got to control the solid pod and I got to control this. I need a DID because now I got to use solid, and I need a DID because I'm using Elastos. And you know as well as I do, before you know it, you want to go to another LinkedIn or an Entre, and Entre says, but we use TBD. So we use TBD's decentralized web nodes. We don't know what Solid is. We don't know what Elastos is. We can't vet those platforms. We can vet TBD because it's under Jack Dorsey or whatever the case may be. But now I'm sitting over here and I'm like, I've already created a Solid pod. I've already created an Elastos Hive. Now I've got to go and create a TBD store. And I need a decentralized identifier. So now I've got 3 DIDs and I've got 3 data stores just so that I can walk around on Web5. You know, and
I think that's what scares users, is that, like we were talking about, it has to be user friendly for people to want to use it. If they hop on and they get confused in the first 30 seconds that they're done. I mean, that is how most users work. And there's people like you that really love, I'm assuming you love the technology of it. You love having to figure it out and understanding what you're getting into. There's a lot of people that don't. They don't like it. I mean, they'll move with the future, but they need it to be handed to them in a very digestible format. And if it's not, they're going to leave. So I almost wonder with all of these, well, I guess I got to get my terms right. What exactly do you call, I guess I keep saying the different platforms, like you keep saying TBD and the other few that you were talking about. Providers, right. So these different providers, I almost wonder if it's going to be something where only the people who really care about the technology use them for the first, say, couple of months to couple of years, until slowly it just starts getting dwindled down until there's only one left remaining. There's one that seems to be the best, seems to be the best use, the best user utility, and then that's the one that the general public hops onto. So then maybe we won't have this issue because there's only going to be the one provider. I kind of think of it I mean, I know it's kind of a different thing, but I almost think of it as Google being the main search engine, because over time people learned that it was just the best, it was the most user friendly, and now, I mean, I'm sure it's still running, but like, I mean, I don't know anybody who searches on Bing or Yahoo or some of these other search engines. They go to Google and it's the main one. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you can tell me if that's something that goes against this technology, if this is never going to happen. But I almost kind of see it as if the whole world's going to accept it, it's probably going to have to be dwindled down by some people until we just have one standing.
Well, look, if they go towards what happened with web browsers, and the web browsers, I mean, you got the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, and they were there to say, look, everyone's going to come with their own version of web browsers, right? You've got Safari, Firefox, Chrome, Brave, and whatever Microsoft's got out nowadays. Mm-hmm. But the W3C is sort of there to say, well, look, these are the standards, make sure that HTML is designed in this way, and that JavaScript works in this way, and that CSS works in this way, so that if a person opens up their website in browser A, it can actually work for the most part in browser B. And obviously each web browser provider sort of brings a little bit extra to the plate and allows you to do a little bit extra, but not at the cost of taking away from the standard functionality. And I think that's ultra important, and it's worked for the most part. It really does. I mean, nowadays you can open up a browser on an application on almost any website and make and it's not because the developer of Facebook had to go and develop Facebook for Firefox and for Chrome and for Safari and for Internet or for Edge. It's not that. It's because there was a standard, and that developer conformed to that standard, which gave him the tools, which gave him the sort of the ability to have that his application or his or her website run across all the browsers. But and if they can do that now for these decentralized web nodes and these DIDs, that they can say, well, maybe if we can conform to data models, whether it be TBD or whether it be Elastos or whether it be Solid in this case, if we can just conform to data models, specifications that says this is what represents a post, this is what represents a music file, this is what represents a video, and this is the JSON metadata, and JSON is like XML, or it's just metadata that gives more information about what the video audio is. I'm speaking for the people who are going to watch this later. And if there's a way to create like a common data model that can be shared across these data stores, then we are going to get what we have with web browsers. But if we're not careful, we are going to find ourselves with iOS and Android. TBD is iOS and Android is Elastos and Windows is Solid. And as a developer of a decentralized web app, I'm going to have to go and develop capabilities for each one of those, which is still, for the most part, what happens nowadays. Is yes, there are ways to develop across, but these are just pre-compilers that sort of allow you to develop once and have it available on all these mobile apps. But as a mobile app developer, I'm the first to tell you that it remains to this day an utter nightmare to develop for iOS and Android, even if I use a cross-platform framework that allows me to sort of develop for both. It's a nightmare. So we want to go with the W3C sort of vision of standardizing how these things work. They can still be decentralized and still be standardized. There's nothing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I definitely like the analogy you were kind of using with the iOS and the Android. I mean, that's something I've never done any kind of work in that, so that's something that I never even thought about how they're so completely different. I just kind of assumed, I mean, I guess like a lot of general public does, that you just make the one app and it's just, you're just posting on different app stores. I never imagined that it would be that different. So that's pretty wild to think about.
Yeah,
definitely. Wow. A question that I was thinking about a little bit earlier, you were talking about how, this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, but you're talking about how with the web right now, obviously we are the product. That's the way that the money is being circulated through Web 2 and a little bit of the sort of Web 3 that we're in right now, is that it's the ad revenue, it's using your data for the advertisers. You were saying that money is going to be paid and I guess made in different ways in true Web3. How exactly is money going to be made for these developers?
Transactional costs. So the DeSo platform is a great example of this, and Ethereum is another great example of. So what happens is you create these smart contracts, and it's these applications that run on this Ethereum blockchain. And the moment you want to do anything on that blockchain, there is a transaction involved, which they refer to as gas fees. Gas fees is just a cost. If I want to do something or submit something and like post a leave request or post a tweet, on a blockchain, there's a cost involved, and that cost they refer to as gas fees. So the reason why I use DeSo and not Ethereum is because of how DeSo sort of went. Ethereum is very advanced, so for technical people or for non-technical folk it's actually quite a nightmare, because there's a lot to keep in mind, and it's a very tiresome process, and it's costly. It's very expensive as well. But if you go to DeSo, they've actually fixed a lot of those issues, because on the DeSo platform, which is a layer 1 blockchain, what they do is they say that when you create a user account, so you feel as like if you go now to like their default app like Diamond or whatever, it feels as if you're just creating a social account like Twitter. It's that easy. But what's actually happening is you're creating an account, and you're creating a crypto wallet, and you're creating one or two other things behind the scenes, and all of it happens automatically. Now, and they're giving you a little bit of crypto to start.
Right.
And the good news is that they are able to give you crypto, because the cost of posting on their blockchain, it would take you a year. If you're a frequent poster on a day by day, if you had to do like 10 to 20 tweets a day, it would take you probably a year to spend about $1 in transaction costs, in gas fees on the DeSo blockchain. So this is knowing that now, I can now go create an application on the DeSo blockchain. And that application can say, every time you post a transaction, I am going to take a fraction of that price. So whatever you're paying for the post on the DeSo blockchain, I'm just going to take a fraction of that, and that's what I'm charging you to make that post on my application. And in doing that, I don't need to find money elsewhere. My job is to get more people on my platform, and my job is to get them interacting with each other, because it's through those interactions they're gonna top up their wallets with crypto. So I mean, you can get DeSo on Coinbase and soon Binance or whatever, and this can apply to other blockchains, by the way. So this can happen on Ethereum, just at a much more costly sort of level.
The gas fees can get
absolutely, and time. So I don't like, if you do something on Ethereum, imagine posting a tweet on Ethereum. You'll sit over there for 2 minutes waiting for that tweet to go through, whereas on DeSo it's instantaneous. So that's why I keep referencing DeSo, because it will be the one that gets adopted by general users, whereas Ethereum is more for advanced people. And through transactional costs using crypto, and this is the power of the blockchain and the power of cryptocurrency, that is going to be the cost. No longer your time, no longer your data, and no longer and possibly no advertising. And that would not be relative to the blockchain. That would be relative to the application that decides they want to start advertising, because that's how they want to make money. But if done properly, the user can revoke access to that for their data to that application, and go to a similar application that's not doing advertising, and they have their same followers, they have their same tweets, nothing has changed. They just carried on over there from where they left off when this one decided to bring in advertisers. So it's changing the game. You as the user, you pay to post tweets and to post videos. You're paying that small amounts of crypto. So your time, they should be paying you for your time now. Now it's worked the other way around. So if they want you to see a video, now they should pay you. And that's now the sort of mind shift that we're going to have with true Web3, is that because you're paying to use these platforms, you cannot pay with your time anymore, and you cannot pay with your data anymore.
So do you think that shift to people having to pay to post their content is going to go over well with the general public? That's my only fear that I see, is that the second you say to people, hey, we're gonna do this. We're not selling your data anymore, but you do have to pay us a small fee to be on our platform. I feel like most people will not sit back and consider what an absolute win that actually is for them, and they'll just say, "Well, I don't want to pay any money if I can go on Twitter and it's free and it's already established, whatever." I'm kind of curious. I mean, I wonder how people are going to react to having to pay to post their content.
It is going to depend on, do they care if their data has been used for advertising, but it's also going to depend on how easy it is to use these solutions and these applications that now exist on a decentralized platform. But and right now that's a problem, because I mean, if you take the money that Twitter and Facebook and these people have, they got enough money to make sure that they create the best wow factor when it comes to their solutions, so that they can keep people there and they can keep the engagement there, and so that people pay with their time and obviously their data. And that's going to be a game and a fight that every Web3 application has to make. So I think what I'm trying to say is that if you're just out to create the Web3 version of Twitter or Facebook, and your intent is to move people over because you're going to somehow convince them that they now don't own they can now own their data over here. And I mean, you can convince them that crypto is quick and easy and you'll be able to just add crypto to your wallet. And $1 a year is almost nothing. It's really going to be affordable. But here's the thing. If you're just another version of Twitter, how are you going to compete with the innovation that the development team are going to put in place and their marketing team when it comes to what they release on Twitter? How are you going to compete with that? Because I don't think the money is going to be there initially, the funding. You're not going to compete with that. And so what you need to do is you need to create your own, you need to bring people to a Web3 ecosystem without them really realizing that they're on a Web3 ecosystem. And you got to somehow create that network and create that community using whatever medium, using whatever tool, either designing what they call a killer app. Everyone's got this idea for a killer app, and try and do that on this platform. And if you win, you bring the audience. And if the audience feels that this is where the social media influencers are, and you grabbing their attention, that the social media influencers can move over to this platform, their followers will follow, and that is how you will move people away from these Web2 tycoons.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just going to be a matter of getting a community together. People want to always be involved in a community. They want to hop on the bandwagon of something that other people are excited about, which I think is big. I mean, I know for Entre, we're looking to expand our community. We're looking to get creators and people that have followings elsewhere on other applications and say, hey, come here, you can make money through cryptocurrency. You can join a decentralized professional network and social platform and bring your followers and your people over here. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's going to be what applications are going to have to focus on and compete with, which is scary. I mean, going up against Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, these platforms that have built themselves for years and have such cult followings at this point. But I think over time, I mean, it's definitely going to be the shift that's going to happen. So yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Let's see. I guess kind of going off of that, in your opinion, what's the timeline for shifting to true Web3? Is this something that we're going to see happening over the next year, or is this going to be 5 years down the line, 10 years? Is this going to be past our lifetimes? I think it's really difficult. I know it's difficult to imagine exactly when it's going to be a full-scale change from people moving from Web 2 to Web 3. But I think a lot of users are curious about if they should care about it right now, because is it going to happen tomorrow, or is this something that I can just worry about 10 years when it actually comes into a general public use?
I feel like we are within 5 years of seeing true Web3 in action, because the technology is there. So the whole, decentralizing web nodes, they're basically just going to take whatever already exists and sort of compact it and work out a couple of mechanics, and so it's not about innovating on that technology now. It's not about us waiting for blockchain to become what it has become over a 10-year period. because it needed time and it needed a lot of people on board. So what we seen as true Web3 is less about the technology and more about the adoption. So we need to create a couple of generic tools, make it very easy for general users, and that is going to be the bottleneck. Making it easy for general user adoption. I mean, how long did it take for anyone to, and I'm talking about the elder generation, before they started finding themselves on WhatsApp and on Facebook, not Twitter. They're not on Twitter. They're on Facebook. They're on, and why are they on Facebook? Because Facebook appealed to their needs, which is keeping in close touch with their families and friends across wherever they live, right? It appealed to that generation. Now, how are you going to grab their attention to be on this Web3 space? You know, it's like, I don't know to what extent they would care. The only reason why I really want them to care is because of the opportunities that exist on this space. I cannot stress the opportunities on Web3 right now. You know, Web2 has been around for a long time. And if you are trying to make it, it's so cool. It's so crazy because whatever has happened on Web2, whatever someone built, if someone built an appliance store on Web2, you get to start over and you get to be the first one who builds an appliance store on Web3 right now. And I don't think people realize the opportunities over there. If you were a social media influencer on Web2, you will not believe. And now it's like so many years later, there's too many social media influencers. Now you're trying to make it as a content creator, and you're trying to play against these big people in the Web2 space. Well, guess what? In the Web3, you'll be able to spearhead through and become a social media influencer because it's a completely new, it's a new ocean. So you get to be a big scale social media influencer on this space because a lot of people there are a lot of people that want to move over, and they love the dynamic of this brand new world, this brand new sort of world where things are possible. And in this brand new world, we need to recreate some of the things that already exist in Web2. And this is why I want to get everyone's attention, because there's just too much opportunity for them to bypass and for them to wait 10 years to only adopt. So the technology is there, and I think the technology is a couple of years away from being solid and enough competition to be creating powerful versions of what we know as decentralized web nodes and apps. We need just a little bit of teething, and we need a little bit of competition to create proper applications on this true Web3 space. But then after that, the adoption is what is to answer your question. That's what's going to be. Is it going to happen in 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years? Is how do we get general users to adopt the tech?
Yeah, I think opportunity is the thing we have to get out to people. I mean, it's one of those where you think about how people always look back at cryptocurrencies when they were in their starting stages. They think about when Ethereum was so cheap. They're like, oh, if I would have bought Ethereum when it was at $100, I mean, no, that was a little ways into Ethereum, obviously, but if I would have bought Ethereum at $100, I'd be so rich right now. Or if I would have started this, if I would have done TikTok before TikTok was big, I would have been the biggest star in the world right now, but I didn't know about it. So I think it's almost about creating a narrative around that. Like, hey, this is one of those opportunities. I mean, you're looking at right in the face of it, and we know this one's going to succeed because we know that this is where technology is moving. This is where the world is going. We know it. The general public doesn't know it yet. So I think it's really just about building out that narrative, getting people excited about the fact that, hey, you really have the chance to be on the front end of something that actually has utility behind it. It's starting to get funding behind it. It's getting momentum. Don't be the one to miss out on it. I think you're heading in a perfect direction with that, because that's what's going to get people excited. They just want to know that they have a chance. That's all people care about.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even give a freebie out there. I mean, what's one of the best things that Facebook is known for is helping you with your birthdays, right? If you've got people on your connections, it's easy. It integrates well with your calendar, and then you know whose birthdays or whatever. But I mean, Facebook has that stuff. Now, what if you wanted to create your own Facebook app? Or what if you wanted to create a birthday app on the decentralized web platform, where it uses your own data store and you can sync with other people in order to obtain their birthdays, so that you can use a birthday app in order to know when it's people's birthdays? That doesn't exist right now. You're taking a fraction component of Facebook and you can turn it into something huge just by moving it into a Web3 ecosystem.
Right.
Take it.
Yeah.
Someone build it.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, so with that, do you think that in Web3 that there's going to be, I mean, I know we talked a little bit already about competition between people who are basically building the same things. Is there going to be patents in Web3? Is there going to be ways for people to claim that an idea or a website or something like that is theirs? Or with the decentralization, that no regulatory body, is it just free game of anybody can make it, but you just got to make it the best?
I'm not sure I can answer those questions. There's always going to be claims, right? And I think it's how far people want to go in order to see if they can actually pull it off or not. Patent wise, the patents they scare me, because now like you got categories of patents and stuff. I'm not clued up with that stuff. I can't answer that one for you, Brody, but I know that people are going to try. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty, definitely on that one. Well, I guess another question that popped up in my head when we were talking a little bit is you were saying how you think that DSO is going to be so great for getting people interested in Web3 just because it works so well for the general public. I know that that DSO is being built and people are starting to integrate into that. I know that the Web5 that we talked about from TBD is built on Bitcoin. In terms of cryptocurrency, I mean, if you're not comfortable kind of talking about it in a financial sense, that's okay. But do you think that there's a certain coin that is going to be utilized in the true Web3 that people should think about looking into? I mean, is DSO where you should be thinking about investing? Is it just, hey, we should be going into Bitcoin because that's where the big heads are trying to get us to go into with Web3? I just want to know, like, with crypto.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that, because we know that Jack Dorsey wants to use the Lightning Network, right? The Bitcoin Lightning Network. Elastos uses Bitcoin mining. So Elastos is the other one that I spoke of that already exists. Now they use 50% of Bitcoin, 50% of the Bitcoin miners on the Bitcoin network are actually mining for their ELA token as well. So the ELA token is connected to Bitcoin then. You know, so between those two, and then we know that Solid is not even a blockchain. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they don't even use blockchain technology. All right. So there's nothing really to benchmark against. But what I do like and what I do see is that because of the volatility of many of the cryptocurrencies and tokens, people are stable coins are starting to become very generic means of, for example, in DAOs and sort of holding money on exchanges and within platforms as USDC and USDT and those sort of stable coins are becoming they're becoming more and more sort of relevant because there's a lot less volatility over there. And I feel that these platforms they have no choice but to accept allowing those as cryptocurrencies on their platform. Otherwise, people are just not going to hold onto their coins. You're going to get your DJs, you're going to get your investors, and you're going to get everyone that's going to trade on these coins, right? I mean, that's not going to go away. So there will always be a need for these tokens and the need for staking and liquidity pools and you name it. But I think the moment Web3 becomes less of a trading platform and more of a utility platform to bring business to Web3, you can't run around with volatile cryptocurrency. You have to start stabilizing, and you're going to need some sort of coin that's backed by a fiat currency that's a lot more stable. And that's where I see USDC and them coming into play.
Okay. Yeah. So you think that USDC is going to be the one that kind of moves in to become the currency of Web3?
I'm seeing it being used. I'm seeing it being used. And I just what I'm not understanding yet is how much is it's going to cost to convert. Like, because what happens is, yeah, I'm seeing it being used. So Avalanche, I was a big fan of how Avalanche blockchain, they've got their own AVAX token, right? And but you can run around on their blockchain and use stable coins as well. And it works on their blockchain. And for me, that was cool now. Now that's nice. I don't have to use AVAX. I can use a stable coin and I can go do what I need to do on their platform. Now that I enjoyed. So if other blockchains can start adopting and somehow finding out a way to do that as well, without charging me an arm and a leg, so that these things can, so that these gas fees, don't have to travel across blockchains, and I don't really understand the mechanics and the layers that go into play. But long story short, I don't want to have to pay an arm and a leg because I want to post something. It needs to be something I don't even have to think about, even though there is a charge. And that's why I'm very pro of what DeSo did. But the DeSo coin is extremely volatile. So it's a terrible idea to hold money in their currency if you're there to bring business to the platform. Then you need something a lot more stable.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, because that instability, I guess the volatility, that's what's going to scare people away too. They need to feel like when they're hopping into this, especially if they have to put their money into posting content, they don't want that money to be switching up where one day it's worth $1, another day it's worth 10 cents, and they're uncomfortable placing their hard-earned funds into a platform, into a currency where they don't know where it's going to end up. I think that's huge. Goes right back into just general usage and comfortability and trust in the platforms. Definitely. Well, I guess now that we're kind of, I feel like we've hit a lot of really awesome points here. I kind of want to talk maybe just about kind of wrapping up, like, what concerns, I guess, do you have about Web3 and Web5 in terms of, we talk about so much opportunity and so many amazing things coming from this. Are there any things within this technology that scare you, that could go wrong, that could end up being something where it's like, wow, we should have just stayed in Web2. Web3 is too decentralized, or people have too much control over their own personal data. And I know we talked about the briefcase and about if you losing your data, that kind of stuff. Do you have any kind of fears about this technology?
I worry about how quick people are to throw exorbitant amounts of money at something that is ready to fail almost instantly. I worry about that, number one, because it makes the Web3, there's a lot of money flying around and people are backing startups and trying to get things off the ground. And then what happens is you get adoption, but then you realize quickly, whoa, no, this didn't work out. And then they jump off, and before you know it, that solution or that platform is gone. And that doesn't make for a stable environment for general users to come on board and say, well, this seems comfortable. Let me come here. Let me bring my money here. And that's it. I think that's another thing as well, is that when you bring people to the Web3 platform, you're telling them, well, we're not buying, you're not paying with your time or with your data, right? So now you got to bring something to pay with. So and that is your hard-earned money. Now you got to come inside there, not thinking as a trader, but thinking as someone who's using the platform. And you need to have that currency, or you need to have the means in order to work on this platform. I'm very worried at how you're going to convince the general user when there is just so much volatility right now in the Web3 space. We need to calm things down a little bit. Otherwise, we're not going to bring the people. And I'm glad if anyone out there feels, no, the 1 million people that are happy to work on the blockchain are fine. Okay, but what about the other couple of billion? That's a lot of money over there. There's a lot of opportunity over there. And the Web2 is just going to suck it all up. So we need to find a way to bring them over. That's one of my big fears right now, is how we're going to do that. Because as a one-man army, for example, as Web3 simplified, I'm trying, but I am struggling. I'm worried. I won't be able to face up. I need to sort of, almost need to start a movement to say, listen, every time someone thinks that they can go and create this without thinking of the repercussions of what they're doing, they need to be slapped, and say, whoa, think about these 50 things before you go ahead and do that. Another fear is it's a false security to think that just because you have your own data store and that you are allowed to grant or revoke access to your data, that it will not be stolen. Okay, that's not true at all. The moment you grant someone access to your data, the moment I give you access, what's to stop you from taking that data and using it to your benefit? I couldn't stop you. So they always advertise, you own your data, you own your data. Yeah, until you give it out. Then you don't own your data anymore. I might choose to revoke you access to my data, but you could have copied it by then. So now that's just one-on-one. Can you imagine you designed a Twitter version for Web5 that now uses everyone's local data stores? They grant access to maybe social media content that's sitting inside their data stores that doesn't sync necessarily. It's not that it syncs up to your data store, but that you use. The fact that you've got that data, the fact that you're displaying that data on that application, you've got access to it. What stops you from taking what you need analytically from that data and putting it one side? Nothing stops you. You see? So that worries me because that's a false sense of security to tell people, oh, but you own your own data. What does that mean? Even DSO, many people say on DSO, you own your own data. That's that's a lie. You don't own your own data. No one owns the data. The data's open. With no access control whatsoever, I can go and grab all your DSO feeds or your DSO tweet or posts and everything that you did on DSO. I can go grab with no access rights. I can do it as anonymous. So how's that you owning your own data? So it's
not ownership. It's just open.
It's just open. There's no ownership. Once you post, it doesn't belong to you anymore. You can choose to hide it. Guess what? It's not hidden. It's still there and it can still be accessed. So you have no right to that data once it gets posted. So I think, for marketing purposes, you use these buzzwords, and then people, because of they don't have the necessary intelligence to sort of read between the lines, because they use they use nice buzzwords that sort of tell the truth, but in a very, very vague way to tell you what you want to hear. And if you don't have the knowledge, you don't really understand what's really going on behind the scenes. And that is a huge fear, because the last thing I want is to convince a bunch of general users to adopt a technology and platform that's going to lie to them from day one. So I've got to be careful who I promote here as well, because now I've got general users that are trusting me to create a pathway from Web 2 to Web 3, but to what end? And these are my fears.
It's definitely a lot of responsibility being in that position, especially as somebody that is known to be knowledgeable, that people trust. That's for sure. But it's also, I guess to me now, especially in this conversation, a fan and a follower of yours, it does give me a lot more comfortability knowing that you understand those fears and you have those in mind when you're looking for the next thing in true Web3. That brings me comfort knowing that, okay, yes, these are things that are fears and can't be fully controlled, but having somebody that's got my back that's also thinking about those same fears helps out a little bit, bringing that comfort for sure. So I think in terms of building up your following and your channel, I guess as long as you're open and honest with your followers about your fears and about things that you see that maybe like, hey, maybe we should look out for this a little bit. I honestly think the openness is going to grow your channel exponentially, because that's what people love to see. They love to know that they're, all my lights are shut off. Love to know that they're talking to a real person that's got their backs.
Thanks for that, Brody. That's exactly the case. And it's still early days. Web3 Simplified is only 2 months old, but it's moving at a pace that I wish my Bleeding Code channel 2 years ago was moving at. My Bleeding Code channel only in a year was it able to do what my Web3 Simplified channel has been able to do in 2 months. And the reason for that is, once again, and I can't stress it enough, it's because I've created a YouTube channel that's focusing on a brand new environment, and it's just booming. Nothing that I'm doing is new. I'm just niching on something specific, on something that is a new world, and people are eating it up. So it's now growing faster. And obviously it's also a balancing act at the end of the day, because a lot of this, the company that I'm sort of invested in is allowing the opportunity for Web3 Simplified to exist. But nothing is for free, right? So it's something I've got to continue. If I had it my way, I'd be a full-time social media influencer. I'd be a full-time content creator. I'd be full-time with Web3 Simplified, and I would be just starting a movement of note of scale if I had my way. But right now, ironically, Web3 Simplified forms about 15% of my available time right now.
I bet it does. Yeah, content creation is a huge, huge role to fill.
Yeah,
There's a lot of time and a lot of work, especially because you want your content to be quality.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
like you said, you have responsibility with yours. It's not just throwing out, oh, here's me playing Fortnite. It's you saying,
Yeah,
hey, here's me telling you the future of the world.
correct.
Let me make sure that I'm
It's a
giving you
lot
that
of research. It's a lot of fact checking. Because sometimes, I mean, what a lot of people do, and I see they do it all the time, is they will whatever post or something that happened on Twitter, and then they'll say, okay, like Jack Dorsey and them when they announced that they were going to do Web5. A lot of channels and a lot of content creators, all they needed to do is just replicate that and say, well, Jack Dorsey said the following, and they would literally just read the article on their channel, and that's that. And I would get upset with that. I would like, what did that help? I could have just read it from the source. But and that's when I, like this conversation that we're having now, I feel that this very conversation that we're having right now is doesn't exist in a proper format on the social ecosystem for people to find and for people to really know what's going on. And it's these kind of talks that are conversation, because these are honest talks. I'm not a specialist.
Right.
I'm not a specialist with TBD in them, but I have done research as a software engineer. I went in and I tried out these technologies, and I'm using my experience in order to put two and two together. And I got to trust my gut in what feels right and what feels wrong. And then that's what I present to the people, and I present it to them as my opinion, and it's like,
Right.
there you go. This is I feel that this is right. I feel that this is wrong.
I think that's all you can do at this point. You can put out opinions, you can tell people what you think and what you feel about the situation. But at the end of the day, we're all still learning what we're getting ourselves into. But I mean, same thing. I do think it's really cool and really, really important that we have people like you that are willing to put in the research to simplify things for people that want to understand, but maybe don't have the capability to be able to break down all the technical terms. And I guess that's where your time as a software engineer comes in and helps you be able to understand that a little bit better. But yeah, John, I mean, I guess if you had any more points or topics that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up here.
No, not
Okay.
really. Yeah, I think we're good.
Well, yeah. Well, I just want to thank you so much again for coming on. I mean, this was amazing conversation. Really appreciate it. And I mean, some of the stuff you said has really enlightened me about what exactly we're getting into here with True Web3, and just being able to get a better understanding of it is just a really awesome thing. So I mean, definitely thank you for your time and for coming on and helping out.